Hello everyone, Rich Hagon alongside Pro Tour historian Brian David-Marshall, welcoming all of you around the world to Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir. BDM, here there be dragons, but where are we going to see those dragons in action? What's the format?
Well, we've got 3 rounds of Dragons of Tarkir Limited starting tomorrow morning. That means people are going to open a pack of Dragons of Tarkir, they're going to open another pack of Dragons of Tarkir, and then they're going to open a pack of Fate Reforged. So this is different than how we've seen Fate Reforged behave in a draft. Previous to this, we had Fate Reforged, Cons of Tarkir. So like all those really amazing rares in Fate Reforged would almost never get passed. But with Fate Reforged being the 3rd pack, people setting their colors up in those first 2 Dragons of Tarkir's packs. Well, you know what? Sometimes you open up a Citadel Siege now, and you look at the white, and the casting cost, and all the blue and black pips in your deck, and you're like, I have to pass this. This is a very, very different way to interact with Fate Reforged. Right,
so the draft is going to have excitement not just in the new cards of Pack 1 and Pack 2, but you're going to have really explosive and life-changing opens in Pack 3 potentially.
Yeah, but awesome. of course in Packs 1 and 2, you mentioned dragons. There are dragons aplenty to be opened, big, bomby dragons, so that can be very exciting.
Yeah, and not just big bomby for limited, because after the 3 rounds, we go into standard, and you might think that's where the dragon fun stops, and we go back to normal Magic. Not a bit of it from what we hear.
No, absolutely. We've already seen, cards like Dragon Lord of Tarka, Thunderbreak Regent, have an impact. Dragon Lord Ojutai, all sorts. Plenty of dragons to be found in standard. Where they'll land and in what decks is still to be determined.
So 3 rounds of draft, 5 rounds of standard. Everyone on 4/4 or better comes back again. 3 rounds of draft, 5 rounds of standard. Cut to the top 8. BDM, how does the top 8 work in terms of best how many out of how many?
Well, we're going to play best 2 out of 3 in the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and then in the finals we're going to play best 3 out of 5.
All right, so that's the schedule sorted. Who might we see at the top of the leaderboard? Almost 450 players were qualified here. We've chosen 6 for you to keep an eye on. Let's take a look at the big board behind us, and we're going to start off, well, a good place to start, BDM, here in Europe with the Spanish reigning champion, Antonio del Moral Leon.
Yeah, he is the first Pro Tour champion from the country of Spain. He's playing in his 5th Pro Tour this weekend in his career, so 25% of the time he wins. That's replicable, right?
Numbers.
But you know what? He feels good. He's got a really emboldened crew of Spanish Magic players that he worked with for the last Pro Tour. They're like, wow, we put in all this really hard work. We did really well. If we work harder, we could do even better.
Right.
And he's really, and we've seen this time and time again with Magic communities where one player has success and it lifts everyone up. And I would not be surprised to see some more success coming from Spain as we head towards the Magic World Cup in Barcelona.
Now, in a way, he has become a team leader, therefore. Our next player, you see behind us there, Ari Lax, well, already a team leader before he went on to win the Pro Tour.
Sure, Pro Tour, Cons of Tarkir champion, finally got his first Pro Tour top 8 of his career after many more than 5 Pro Tours. He was, someone who was on that leaderboard of players who had not gotten a top 8 and had accumulated in excess of 100 pro points.
Right.
Ari Lax, of course, team TCG player, someone who's, they've been just a real force. We saw Seth Manfield in the top 8 of the last Pro Tour. Ari had done a deck diary with us and talked us through their burn deck. Ari is someone I think I always was expecting him to have that breakthrough result into a top 8, and now that he's gotten there, I expect to see him many more times.
All right, so that's Ari Lax. And our 3rd player on the wall, well, this is Bob Marr Jr. And BDM, to continue the theme of team lead, this is someone who has decided, after many years of part-time engagement with the game, to come back and really lead a team forward. And the story of Team Ultra Pro starts now, this weekend.
Yeah, so Bob, of course, is a Pro Tour Hall of Famer, Pro Tour Chicago champion 1999, many times Pro Tour top 8 competitor, someone who Yeah, so this was, teamwork at the last Pro Tour. There's a group of people that said, you know what? It's really hard for me to keep playing on these Pro Tours while I have to take 2 weeks off to play test in a farmhouse with the Pantheon, or spend a week in Vegas with, Eric Froelich and the Channel Fireball guys, and then another week in the, it was like, this is a lot. I can test on Magic Online. And there's a handful of players, a little older, people with full-time jobs, Paul Rietzel, Ben Stark, Bob Maher, Adrian Sullivan, and a number of other players. They've added Craig Wesco for this event.
Yeah, it's a big Madison contingent to this crowd all around.
They said, you know what, we could test on Magic Online. We can share information. We have all these great drafters. We have all these great voices for different, you talk about Adrian Sullivan as someone who's a consummate control player, Craig Wesco, the ultimate aggro player. So, they have everything covered, and they are Team Ultra Pro. And that name is both a sponsor and a description.
Absolutely. All right, here's our next 3 players then to keep an eye on. And I'm going to take you all the way back this way to see Mr. Jacob Wilson. He is still only 20. He has 4 Grand Prix top 8s to his name, 2 Pro Tour top 8s in only really a handful of starts. And really, BDM, in the world of Magic, no one right now is hotter, having just won the Star City Games Invitational.
Yeah, he was on his way to Brussels, sort of dusted off a deck, went to the Star City Games Invitational and won the tournament, and then has spent the last 10 days literally in a farmhouse with no internet. With Team Pantheon, he's now a member of the Pantheon. Working on this format, drafting. He's like, wow, that's a tough draft table to practice against. Comes out of that. It's hard to imagine someone going into a Pro Tour with a 30% win percentage in Pro Tour practice drafts and feel good about it. But that's kind of where Jacob Wilson is.
He's like 1 and 2 at every table. That's brutal.
But, it's a table full of Hall of Famers and Pro Tour champions and, people with even better resumes than Jacob Wilson, who has a pretty amazing resume.
This guy behind us, many of you may not recognize. This is Teruya Kakumai. Have I got that right, BDM?
Yes,
Kakumai?
Kakumai.
Tell me about him.
Well, if you have been paying attention recently on the Grand Prix circuit, Kakumai has 2 Grand Prix wins this season. He leads the Pro Points race for the Grand Prix invite to the World Championship.
Right.
And is someone who, you think, oh, well, this must be a new player. I've never heard of him before. But if you go back a little bit more than 10 years to Japanese Nationals 2004, he's got a top 8 at Japanese Nationals. He's been away from the game for a while, recently came back. He has said it's his mission this year to get to platinum.
Wow. That's an ask, because
he's got a lot of work to do. So.
But fantastic job by him, as you say, 2 Grand Prix titles this year. But
by the way, look up his top 8 from Japanese Nationals 2004. It is a stacked top 8. Mahara, Fujita, Sumura, Nakamura. It's unbelievable.
Basically, everyone you've heard of from the mid-2000s was in that one.
Yeah.
Now, 2 Grand Prix wins there. How about 2 World Championship wins for this man here, Shahar Shenhar? But no Pro Tour top 8.
Yeah, we talked about that leaderboard, or, unleaderboard. I don't know how you refer to it, but of players with the most pro points without a Pro Tour top 8. And Shahar Shenhar is just steadily climbing up that. He's got good results. He's come close a couple times. He's got Grand Prix wins. He's got 2 World Championships, but he still hasn't quite gotten that Pro Tour top 8. He said in an interview I did with him that maybe that's like, well, I do better in established formats. Maybe I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage in some of these brand new formats, but that's what makes this so exciting. We don't know what we're going to see. We don't, and so that takes us nicely onto some of the cards that we might see in Constructed and Limited. Why don't we start with 3 that we might see in Constructed for you? I'm going to bring you back this way, and we begin with a nice big legendary Zombie Naga Sidisi Undead Vizier. Well, the 2 decks in the finals of the Star City Invitational during release weekend for this set both had Sidisi Undead Vizier in it.
Right.
I mean, it's obviously one of the premier cards in this new pool of cards that have been added in Standard.
Slightly less clear, possibly, is the role of Narset. No, I'm going to back out of that and just...
Is it?
No, apparently not. Everyone's going to play Narset. Tell us about Narset.
Everyone's going to play Narset. No. One of our favorite guests for Deck Tech is Shaheen Sarani to talk about control decks.
Always, yeah.
And Shaheen has talked, this card has just excited him about playing blue-white control. He said that this deck that this card, Narset Transcendent, is better in this standard format than Jace the Mind Sculptor was in its standard format.
Well, the thing is, sometimes you read cards and you don't quite get it. Just look at the words, it gains rebound, and just rearrange the letters, and you get, it gains, I am a free spell.
Right. Yeah.
It's clearly good.
And again, big number here, 6. You go up to 7 when you play it. Sometimes you get a free card for it. So,
okay.
Pretty exciting.
Will we be saying ding grats to Zergo Bellstriker?
You know, I mean, Red has already done well in this format. I mean, all of these cards have already put up some results. Zergo Bellstriker is certainly a card that is going to make Red Mages very happy. Aggro players, you know, I'm sure that, you know, Paul Rietzel sits down to play test the format. This is going to be one of the cards that's on his short list.
It is very possible that this weekend is going to make Red Mages very happy. That's a really big potential player. But what about Limited? Because there's some great cards for our first 3 rounds each day. Again, let's take a look. Over here, and we're going to work our way up the rarity chain in Enchantment Land,
so,
BDM.
You know what? When you're drafting Dragons of Tarkir, you could open a dragon. Right? It's pretty self-explanatory from there. You're like, I've opened this red-green dragon. I've opened Dragon Lord of Tarkir. I'm going to draft red-green cards, and I'm going to ramp into her, and I'm going to play her, and I'm going to win.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's some build-around cards that people have been talking about, and different people are excited about. Don't know if they're good or not yet. I know this is a card you like.
I do. I like it a lot just because at the point at which, now 1 isn't great, but the beauty of this card is that you're the only player who gets it. And because it's common, in a draft, you're going to get 3 or 4 of these. If you get 4 of them, you will get 2 in play. And if you have every creature I have, including the dash cards, by the way,
yes,
is a shock free to the face.
Where this card really shines is with dash.
I think so.
And I saw people playing this week with dash cards where they're like, wow, this board's gummed up. I can't get through. Play my dash guys, pick them up. Play my dash guys, pick them up. I win.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, again, this is a card that you're just like, is this something we're going to see someone go, wow, this draft is not working out the way I wanted? Is this a card that they can build a deck around?
Tremor.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things. It's high risk, high reward. Somebody out there will have the story of how they just lost to 4 impact tremors on the board simultaneously. Ugh. But a lot of people will die with their 1 impact tremor when they draw it and they need a creature. So what about this middle option? Let's go to Uncommon Skywise Teacher.
This is another card, you know, this reminiscent of maybe Goblin Slide from earlier, you know, an earlier version of the Tarkir draft format.
Right.
You know, this is, again, you talk about rebound spells. You talk about, you know, Ojutai's Breath. Tap your creature, rebound, tap another creature, they get locked down. Well, you know, pay 2 more mana with a Skywise Teachings in play. Suddenly you're putting, you know, a Djinn into play twice for that. You have Student of Ojutai in play to sort of turtle up behind, and now you're gaining some life while you're doing that. You know, the draft format is very, very fast, as obviously we're talking about in Impact Tremors, you know, janky dash deck.
And those super fast white decks
super
as well.
Yeah, you know, very fast. Is there a deck that's going to be able to play slower, turtle up, gain life, and use all these spells and rebounded spells to put an army of flyers in play and eventually just clean up? Maybe.
Okay, let's go rare. Now, BDM, you're going to have to explain this to me, because I like pacifism rather more than the next guy, in fact, but I want to pay 1 in white and I want it to be common. I don't want it to be 1 in blue and rare.
Sure, so you can play Mirror Mockery as effectively a pacifism. You put it on your opponent's creature. If they attack with it, you get a mirror of that card. You get a token copy of that card, and you can block their creature, maybe trading, maybe just locking it in combat.
This doesn't sound very exciting.
It gets a little better if your opponent's creature has a come into play ability, right?
Okay.
But where I have found this card really shine in my draft experiences is on my own creatures, where my creatures have come into play abilities like, say, the exploit mechanic.
Oh-ho.
So getting it on a Silumgar's Butcher, for example. You know, and I attack with my 3/3, and I put a Butcher into play. And I have this exploit trigger. Well, I'll just sacrifice this token that's going to die at the end of the turn anyway to itself, and now I kill that, and I kill that, or I Gurmag Drowner, or I put it on an Aven Surveyor. And now I get another bounce to another one of your guys, That's
why it's rare.
That's why it's rare.
Not a pacifism at all. It can be.
Yes, it can
but
be.
it's not.
So just some of the obviously, I recommend you open a dragon and draft all the cards that line up with your dragon and beat your opponent mercilessly about the head and shoulders with said dragon. But failing that, there's some options at common, uncommon, and rare that you can do. And I'm curious to see how people are going to draft this format at the top tables this weekend.
It's going to be super exciting stuff. 16 rounds of Swiss, 3 of draft, 5 of standard, 3 of draft, 5 of standard, dragons everywhere. We'll track them every fire-breathing inch of the way. Join us, won't you? Rich Hagon, Brian David-Marshall. Bye.